yourself. If you're we can talk about them if that you feel is most appropriate. But you do have the autonomy and agency to take care of yourself today, so please do that. And then throughout this talk, there are going to be moments for reflective pause where we'll be focusing on breathing. If you have any questions or thoughts at any point in time, I welcome them. But there also will be these moments of pause that might be very clear places and discussion. I'm going to try to have only 30 minutes of presentation. It's a lot of subject matter, so it might end up being about 40 minutes. So we will see. So today we're talking about what is mindfulness? Why does mindfulness matter? How can one explore somatic sensual pleasure with mindfulness? And before I start on the journey that I've intended for us, I'm curious if you have any preconceptions of what mindfulness is all about. What are your current curiosities? And are there aspects about mindfulness that you are hoping to learn today? So either if you want to turn on your mic and speak, or if you want to put something into a chat, I'll happily try to integrate your preconceptions, your thoughts, your curiosities into the talk as we go. Any takers? No? Okay, away we go. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is an Eastern practice, huh? Yes, thank you. Yes, mindfulness as an awareness and attention, correct? Mindfulness is, there are many definitions for it. The one I'm going to be working with today is that mindfulness is defined as a present moment metacognition awareness without judgment, reactivity, or goal expectation. And so some of those words, if they're on here, we're going to go about and unpack those during the talk today. This is non-attached impermanence, which allows surrender of emotion and sensations to the truthful here and now, so right here and right now, with a spirit of curiosity, gentleness, and compassion. Mindfulness potentially will allow you to interoceptively, that's within your body, form your genuine, unique arousal template, personal erotic meaning associated with solo and interpersonal somatic sensations and choices. And I always like to think for myself and for others that mindfulness, much like enlightenment, is a continual practice in a state of being. So there is no right, there is no wrong, there is no goal, no destination. And a little caveat that once you get on the mindfulness train, it is quite possible it might dispel some of your chemical, emotional, psychological responses that you've been culturalized throughout time. You might not be off. You might not be able to get off in the same way you did before. I personally think that's great, but a little caveat for you. And so one of the things about mindfulness and enlightenment, so you're seeing an image of the Dalai Lama here. So, and this photo is the Dalai Lama's hometown. So when they are stuck in traffic, going to the airport to go give a talk someplace around the world, they are still enlightened, even when they're upset and in traffic. And so if you're feeling sensations come up at some point in time, if you're feeling angry or upset or whatever those things are, that doesn't mean you are no longer mindful. That is part of the process. And thank you for contributing those two thoughts, Amy and Aubrey, about your definitions for mindfulness. So to start off, if we could try taking a breath together. So a little instruction for you first. You're going to be breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. As you're breathing out, we're going to do 5 breaths. The first breath out, look at 5 things that you can see. Consider those 5 things as you're breathing out. Then the next breath out, 4 things you can hear, and 3 things you can feel, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And then after those, pause for a moment. So if we could do 5 breaths together, breathe in and breathe out. Allow twice the amount of time for the out breath. Breathe in again, breathe out. Third breath in, out. Next breath in and out. And the last breath in and then out again. Thank you. So perhaps as you're wondering if you're doing it right or wrong, in Chado tea ritual, we talk about Ichigo Ichie, the idea that this moment is exactly as it should be. So if you had a hiccup, if you coughed or choked while you're breathing, that is okay. It doesn't mean it's a bad breath. If you didn't feel anything, that is okay. So it is just the process, the choice to be exploring mindfulness. I would consider that to be the right way, as long as you're endeavoring towards it. But don't worry about judgment so very much about right or wrong. So why does mindfulness matter? We have very busy lives. There's a lot of stress in our lives. There are a lot of things that we are thinking about and considering all the time. We can get very frantic. We can get very lost. And so potentially, as we are exploring our lives and we are feeling stress, we might start feeling anxiety, boredom, apathy. Ideally, what we want to try to find what is called a flow state. So Csikszentmihalyi talked about this idea of flow state. It is potentially, if you've been doing work, you've been driving your car where time suddenly just melted away, you no longer had an understanding outside of what you were doing. That is when you're in that place between arousal and control, where your skill set, you're using your highest level of skill, and that's coupled with a high level of challenge, and that brings you into a flow state. It's a state of joy, it's a state of fully presence. So since 1908, we've been really curious about stress itself, and we've been exploring it, how stress affects how we do things, our performance. For a very long time, we basically were focusing on this middle place here, peak performance. The idea that peak performance meant that you actually had a significant amount of stress. Versus over here with the red arrow, which is the place of healthy tension, where you're more on the green side. You're not so much towards that yellow or red, you're more on the green, more in the healthy tension. A little bit of tension, that's like waking up. That's a little bit of arousal. That is good. We eventually found that the closer you get to the red, actually the worse it is. Basically, it was cost effective to have their soldiers not being stressed out. With a lot of stress, potentially they were not doing their job well, potentially they were having PTSD, they were needing to be pulled out of the field, placements were required. So for good or for bad, cost effectiveness caused the government to look into stress and how to potentially create resiliency instead of stress. How you can stay towards that green, how you can stay towards the happy, ready side of things. And so you really want to try to stay curious as you're exploring your life and as you're exploring stress. So potentially, if you're feeling stressed, you want to try to create a sense of safety, a sense of calming, a sense of yourself, that you can trust yourself, that you can feel calm within yourself. Collective efficacy, so if you're part of a group, create a connection with that group, how you and that group together can work to create a sense of safety and calming, and then potentially hope that can help bring you back as well. Otherwise, potentially with stress, we get very focused. We may focus in on this lion, fight or flight response. It's totally normal, it's totally natural to have those sensations. But if you're focusing entirely on this lion, you're going towards that red state, the stress state, the unhealthy place. And in that, potentially you might not notice the whole picture. So unfortunately for the zebra in this photo, we are not that zebra. We are seeing that zebra. Things might not go so well for the zebra, but if we are stressing out and we are focusing on the lion, you might miss the fact that the zebra stress is not actually our stress. We are witnessing it, but we are detached from it. It is not ours. And so potentially we can have more calm in understanding what is our stress and what isn't our stress. Throughout life, there are lots of hoops we potentially need to jump through, and it's very stressful. In childhood, we played games and they had lots of rules. They had things that we had to do. And so I highly recommend potentially to think of those stresses in life like a game. Is there a way for you to find the ridiculous nature of it, find fun in those stresses, find a way to be playful with those stresses, so that instead of them being a stress that is going to bring you to an unhealthy place, you can stay in the green place. You can stay curious about what is going on with the stress. Why are you having those sensations and feelings? And we're starting to bring this into our schools. We're starting to bring this into prison systems. I was mentioning that I was a first responder, and so we're doing a lot of work with that Mindful Badge Initiative to bring stress reduction and resiliency into the work that we were doing. It's really, really important work, and I'm excited to see that's getting integrated across our culture and society. And so we're going to try another breath if you could. It's also great if you have any thoughts. If you want to, it's a good time to think about. As time we're doing 5 breaths again, realize those next passages here. The 5 breaths, in and out, each out, trying to think of 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. We're going to do this exercise over and over again so that you potentially can start feeling more comfort with it as we go. And maybe you can choose to integrate this into your life if you feel it is helpful for you. So as you're feeling the breath coming in through your nose, you have turbinates inside your nose here. I like to think of them as a stream or a bubbling brook. As the breath is coming up into my nose, I like to feel those sensations of the breath moving around, bubbling and tumbling through the turbinates of my nose. Feeling those sensations if you can. Hopefully my connection is doing as best as possible.
Okay, thanks. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I wasn't sure how much people were hearing you. There's quite a bit of warp. If you have any other devices that are currently on, it could help if you turn them off on your end, Fredrick, and then maybe it could be a bandwidth problem.
Okay.
But I will, we can hear you, but there's quite a bit of sort of a warped sound to your voice.
Okay. Very good. So, let's see. So potentially in our life, I personally often will say that I have a monkey mind. There are many things going on in my brain all the time. It might be stress or regret, anger, taxes, worry. And how potentially can you be present? How can you quiet down those monkeys, those chaotic monkeys, to be the Zen monkey that you're seeing over here on the side? And so there's a process that I've been using for a number of years where you basically, it's not schizophrenic, but it might be slightly helpful to think of that of splitting yourself into more than one person. That you have your ideal self, and then potentially you have your icky feelings. These are 2 photos of my friend Shanessa, which I really love. And there are 2 different sides of herself, her punk rock self, and then what she calls her goddess self, her ideal self. And so Ken Wilber talks about this idea of creating different versions of yourself so that you can start communicating between them, so that your actual self can inform the icky or the angry or the distracted self. But that doesn't mean that you're judging them, you're just communicating between them. So your actual self is here in the middle. Your your icky, your angry self, that is the inertia, that is parts of you that are maybe pulling you in a direction you don't want. And then you have the ideal self, which maybe you'll achieve someday, maybe you won't, but that's the direction you want to go. And your ideal self, your actual self, is in that middle place between, communicating between them. And so this is a practice from Ken Wilber. In the references at the end, I'll give you some links to video and writing of his. And then I also want to specifically note that witnessing is not the same as spectatoring. We will talk about spectatoring a little later. That's related to Master and Johnson's work and sexuality. They're very different things. Witnessing is being fully present in yourself, but just understanding the differences in the states of yourself between who you are currently, who you want to be, and some of those sensations that maybe aren't what you want to be. Spectatoring is where you're detached from yourself. You're looking at yourself as if you're having an out-of-body experience without having those connected sensations. So with awareness, we have the choice to be present. So right now, what is your choice? Are you fully listening right now to what I'm saying? Are you fully feeling the things that you are feeling in your body and in your mind? Are there things that you need right now? As Roz was just saying, like turning off your electronics, do you need to turn some of them off? Could you ground your feet, take a deep breath, soften your eyes, listen fully and engage? Quite often in our culture, we're not always truly connected. People are always in cafes side by side and tweeting or doing whatever they are choosing to do. And the one might say, hey, could you stop tweeting? Could you be present with me right now? So maybe the ideal version is, yes, you'll turn off the phone and you will be present, but you have a choice. And so you might need to tweet right now, you might do whatever you're doing. So if you're multitasking right now, that's your choice. That is fine. Don't feel bad, shame, or guilt around that. Okay, we're gonna do another breath. This time we're gonna be focusing in on our lungs, the sensations in your lungs. You know the general drill. It's five breaths in, 5 breaths out. Seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, and taste. But really, with these 5 breaths, try to feel the sensations in your lungs, in your chest. Feel your ribs as they expand out and as they drop back down. Feel your diaphragm moving up and depressing back down with your breath, your lungs opening and closing. So to try to focus on your awareness, the internal dialogue, the internal things. What do you want right now? Do you need a cookie? Are you hungry? Are you bored? Are you excited? What do you want right now? What do you have to offer right now? Do you have any thoughts or any questions that perhaps you could offer forward? Expertise that you have in these ideas or curiosities? And then can you listen fully right now? Either listening to yourself, listening to the words that I am saying. And then as we start in the person, each individual is going to be considering, can each individual request what they want right now? Can each individual offer what they desire right now? Can each individual listen to what is requested or being offered by another fully? And can you compassionately receive, accept what is offered, or request an alternative? If a format isn't working for you, can you ask for a change? Roz asking me to turn off the electronics so that we could have better bandwidth was a wonderful thing. So thank you for doing that. And it gets complicated sometimes. We have these monkey minds going on. And potentially we might need to quiet that monkey mind a little bit so that we can connect with another person. And we need to potentially do that without reading between the lines, trying to misinterpret nonverbal or verbal communication, trying to really truly learn in this present moment so that you can gift what you have to offer. You can make a request. and you potentially can create opportunities for yourself and other people in your life. And so this image is from Crazy Stupid Love. Potentially, if you've seen this film, you already are having some thoughts and expectations of how this is going to go. That is real. These are sensations you are feeling. They're memories based from your past when you experience this movie. Those are genuine feelings. But that doesn't mean that this is necessarily how things are going to go. This movie could be rewritten. You have the opportunity in your life to rewrite your own script, your sexual script, your other personal narratives in your life. Because it is quite possible that if you can have a sense of your internal self, what you need, what you want, what you have to offer, the external world that is coming to you, and then the choices that you have between those, potentially this could actually go in a much better way. Instead of it being the very misogynistic, creepy nature of this film, it could have been a lovely, nice compliment, and off they went with their day. Just consider that in moments when you come up against something that potentially reminds you of something from the past. And we're going to do another breath. This time we're going to focus in on the belly. 5 breaths in, 5 breaths out. Seeing, hearing, feeling, scent, taste. As the breath comes in and out, feel your belly expanding, feel it contracting, feel the effect of your diaphragm in relation to your belly. Feel your lungs, feel your ribs, how all that relates to your belly, the sensations that you feel. Maybe you're feeling hungry, maybe you did or didn't eat this morning. Just feel those sensations there. And so as we start getting more and more into our body, Masters and Johnson's back in 1966 created the sexual response model, which personally I'm not a huge fan of. I feel it was very linear. It was not particularly very helpful. And then in 1991, Tiefer really started questioning this, questioning the nature of this and the dichotomy of gendering, and then also questioning whether it was relevant in the first place, whether this actually existed in our life. There's been a lot of argument that it was a self-fulfilling prophecy in the way this study was done. And then in 94, Levin created a different model. This was published under an understanding of the male body, but he further said that this is applicable in Levin's belief to all people, that we basically are highly complicated, and holistically there are so many different things that inform our choices, our sexuality, our somatic awareness. This concept really changed things. It started looking at the big picture, and it started looking at the diversity of people on the planet. It was not just a limited study group. And so this actually started informing Basson, it started informing Nagalski, and looking at the idea of a cyclic desire, arousal, satisfaction loop, looking at the neurotransmitters and hormones that are related to this. This is a full lecture in and of itself. I'm only showing it as a quick slide, mostly so you can understand that that Basson in 2014 started working, has been working with Laurie Brotto at University of British Columbia, and changed their position on the cycle. Basically saying that through mindfulness, that most of these neurochemicals that are affecting these things change dramatically. Instead of being reactive, and most of these are coming from that fight, flight, freeze, that part of the brain, instead of us being reactive, we simply have the potential to take things in, make choices, conscious choices around things, instead of a reptilian brain reaction to stimuli. And so this is where I'm going to remind you of the warning again, because potentially that dopamine, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, all of those things, we are used to those biochemical changes from external stimuli, and we become reliant on those. And so as you start going down the mindfulness path, you potentially are going to start stepping away from those reactions, and it's going to change things quite a bit for you. And so potentially some of the culturalization is just going to go away. Instead of external stimuli being the things that turn you on, you're going to actually figure out yourself as an individual. And so Bassan and Brato and quite a number of others have been studying mindfulness and how it affects the body, how it affects sexuality, how it affects the mind. And so this is a very long list of peer-reviewed research proving that mindfulness, it is not a cure-all, but it has a massive and amazing effect on so many different symptoms that are plaguing our medical cultural system right now. It's incredible. And a lot of them are actually coming from socio-cultural, political, and economic context. That's the big switch that Bassan had between the earlier model, which had a gendering to it and saying that women were not responding per the Masters and Johnson model. What Bassan and Brato investigated was that it's primarily the disparity between gender norms in our culture and the problems and issues related to that. That is the main reason for a lot of these things. The anxiety, vaginismus, low sexual desire, erectile dysfunction, quite a number of these things, these are all cultural things. And so if we can be more mindful, potentially we can minimize the cultural impact to ourselves, and potentially we can enhance our arousal, our general pleasure, our mood, our sexual concordance. Okay. So now I'm going to start working towards the direction of how to bring mindfulness into your body and exploring somatic sensual pleasure. And so a little while ago, I talked about that zebra, and the zebra is not some Zen master. The zebra, of course, gets stressed out and does worry about lions, potentially. Getting attacked by a lion is a horrific thing. It's very real, but zebras, they have this mindfulness nature to themselves, that when the stress is real, they feel stress. After the stress is done, after the lion has left, they shake it off. They physically shake their body to get the stress out of their body. And potentially, if you have a dog or a cat, you see them doing the same thing as well. They will take off some stress if they're not feeling very good right now. It's a really wonderful, simple practice. Highly recommend it. Before the lecture began, I was moving around a little bit just to try to get a little stress out of my body. And so a really great way to start exploring your body is in the shower. Potentially, you feel comfort in that place. So your vulnerability is maybe less, you're by yourself. You have choice, you can step under the water, you can regulate the temperature, whether it's hot or cold. You can enjoy the water as it cascades over your body. You can feel the sensations of that water as it's cascading over your body, the feeling on your face, the steam in the air, you can breathe that in, and the sensations that you feel in your lungs and in your nose as you're breathing that steam. It's a really simple, great way to start exploring somatic awareness is in the shower. If you don't enjoy showers, perhaps a bath might be a wonderful choice for you. And so the potential with the bath, you can relax your body, you're not standing up. You potentially, you can, if you want, you can start exploring your body more physically. I would not necessarily say go in the direction of masturbation just yet, but exploring your body Dodson and many others talk about being aware of your physical body. And through that awareness of your physical body, you can understand where the sensations are coming from, and you can create connection to that. And so if you've ever seen the TV show Sex Ed, this is one of the episodes where one of the characters, Amy, was learning how to masturbate. She was prescribed a wank. And it is actually a very important thing. Quite often in our culture, masturbation is something that we do silently, that we do privately, that there's a lot of shame around it. And to truly get to understand your body as an individual first, to make noises, to scream, to shout, to moan, to do whatever you need to do, let those sounds come out. I'm stepping through these things in what I consider to be graduated risk. So you need to do what is appropriate for yourself and only go as far as makes sense for yourself in that time. Take another breath. And so I'm going to be going through a few last things rather quickly, just because they are each a lecture in and of themselves. It's just an introduction of the next few topics. But as you're breathing in and breathing out this time, think about your pelvic floor. Your lungs affect your diaphragm affects organs, and then your organs in your belly press your pelvic floor up and down. Your pelvic floor directly affects your genitalia. It affects your anus. With sexuality, these are things that many people consider to be the core of sex. But I highly recommend for mindfulness not to be general focused. That is part of your body, but you're not your whole body. And also that we are all unique. There are many different vulvas there. There's a huge variety of people. And so getting to truly know yourself without any preconceptions. And so with exploring your body, potentially if you want to start working with a partner, you can do sensate focus, the idea of handwriting, placing one hand on top of another. So your partner is touching your body, your hand on top of them. So that through nonverbal communication, you can press down if you're enjoying it. You can push their hand in other directions if it is not working for you. It can be done very platonically over clothing. It can be done by people of huge range of abilities. It can be done on skin directly if you like. Is that on the right are the low risk, non-taboo or less taboo zones of the body, such as the hands and the shoulders. And then going over to the left, which is maybe more intimate, other parts of your body that you might not want a stranger to touch. Just consider your risk. Consider your erogenous zones. You want to explore your whole body and not just the erogenous zones. We often in sex get focused on only those places. Just one of many places you want to explore. Another recommendation is to maybe explore Chinese medicine. There are different areas of your body that have energetic and nerve pathway connections, that if you have sensations in one of these areas, it might be similar throughout, exploring one area at a time and then going to the next one. And continuing on with your bodily awareness, there are many ways you can do this. Master and Johnson in the bottom corner, they recommended to be sitting one in front of the other. People to be able to touch each other in a potentially non-sexual or less sexual manner, to be able to reach around and feel your partner properly versus the massage position that many people will take. It is difficult. You can't reach your arm around your back. So you can't do handwriting in that case. Potentially with massage, you might start having expectations that you want to give a good massage. And this isn't about expectations or assumptions. And if it is more comfortable to face each other, you're welcome to do that, but try to stay in the moment, not having a goal orientation, not trying to get to sex, but being in your body right here, right now. And then just going through the senses as you're exploring sight, different things that might impact your
Fredrick, I'm
sight.
sorry, I need to interrupt and just do a verbal time check because we're 10 minutes over at this
Okay,
point, where the
perfect.
presentation was supposed to end. So how many slides do you have left?
This is my one. I have 4 more after this, and that's that. And
Okay.
they're as simple as this one. So basically
All right.
sight, sound, touch, scent, and taste. And these are the things we talked about today and how you can bring attention together. So,
all right. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Does anyone have, we wanted to leave time for questions. There certainly is time for that. Frederick's got a lot of really great resources up there. I wonder if you could leave those up for a moment. I think that's great.
so I have an entire bibliography that I will happily send. I have a PDF I can send to anyone with all the links to all the videos and everything else. And so I will post my email on my website again. And also the QR code there, if you scan that, that'll take you directly to my website if you can't type right now.
All right.
I'll happily send you all those links and references.
Great, thank you. And, you know, we like to check out each other's websites and what we're doing. I allowed people to unmute. Up to this point, you were not allowed to unmute yourself, just in case it happened accidentally and so that it wouldn't interrupt. But at this point, if you'd like to unmute and ask a question, or if you'd like to throw a question into the chat box, either one is allowed. We are still recording, and that's just to help Fredrick with his own presentation. It's not to make you self-conscious, and Fredrick is the only person who's going to be watching that afterward. But if there's questions, now's the time. Maybe there are some comments, people reactions that you'd like to share with Fredrick. Okay, I would love to say that I love the way that you brought sensate focus together with mindfulness, because I think they absolutely are linked and connected. I think that really sensate focus is based in mindfulness. It just wasn't, I don't think that that word was really in our lexicon at that time. That was back in the 50s. But I think that's what they were trying to do, was really bring presence to people. And I thought that was really beautifully done. And it gives us such a nice connection between the present research on mindfulness and the present ideas about mindfulness and sexuality, and back to our some of our more, you know, recent roots, if you will, in our field. So thank you for that. I thought that was really, really well done. Anybody else? We have another comment here. Bianca saying, I have questions, but she's eating. Kara says she likes your slides. Anyone else have any reactions or comments they'd like to make? Questions about Fredrick's resources or sources or anything else? Okay, I'm going to end the recording at this point.
Do you want to see